and they deported to the notorious El Salvador prison by mistake. Also, with markets in meltdown mode again, the president says it'll all work out. As for his cabinet, they're heaping praise on his handling of it all. And later, the horrifying crash of a sightseeing helicopter in New York City, the chopper plummeting from the sky, crashing into the Hudson River with a family of 5 on board. We'll show you how it happened. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. We begin with breaking news from the Supreme Court. This happened a little more than an hour ago. It concerns this man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who was deported to El Salvador almost a month ago. The Trump administration called his inclusion in the deportation an administrative error. He's locked up in the country's notorious Secot prison, built to confine alleged convicted terrorists and gang members under very harsh conditions. Now, the administration, while admitting it made mistakes, also said it cannot get him back, despite a lower court order to make it happen. And a little more than an hour ago, the Supreme Court weighed in, though perhaps not in a way that settles the matter once and for all, saying the administration must abide by the lower court's order to, quote, facilitate his return. Here to help us sort it out, former federal prosecutor, best-selling Supreme Court biographer Jeffrey Toobin. I want to read just from the court ruling. The order properly requires the government to facilitate Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador and to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador. The intended scope of the term effectuate in the district court's order is, however, unclear and may exceed the district court's authority. What does that mean?
Well, first of all, I think it's just worth pausing to recognize this was an extraordinary, unanimous rebuke of the Trump administration.
That's a big deal from this Supreme Court.
From this Supreme Court with 6 conservatives on it. The fact that they all agreed that the Trump administration should try to facilitate the return of Mr. Garcia to the United States. But what does that mean in the real world? The Trump administration has already said Mr. Garcia is in the custody of El Salvador. We have no control over prisons in El Salvador, so we can't get him back. Now, given the relationship...
I mean, that seems absurd, given that they're paying them $6 million or whatever to hold these people.
Right, and given the very close relationship, particularly between this administration and the current El Salvador government, it seems like this is something that they could facilitate if they wanted to. But what remains mysterious about this order is what happens if Mr. Garcia doesn't come back. And how does the court try to enforce something that's entirely in another country under the control of another government? That's left very much open by this order.
And who would decide that? A lower court?
Well, for the time being, a lower court will administer the return, but ultimately they have very limited jurisdiction over what goes on in El Salvador. So the direction is to our government, and the question is, how hard will the Trump administration try to get Mr. Garcia back, if at all?
One can make an argument they might not want him back. They don't want him giving interviews. They don't want that story continuing. And there could just be a nod and a wink, and the El Salvador government could say no.
The Trump administration's approach to this whole case has been like something one of my law professors used to say, which is some people think some crimes are so terrible that not even innocence is a defense. In other words, because he was even mistakenly accused of being involved in this gang, that means he has to be treated like he's in this gang. And so he's stuck in this hellhole in El Salvador with no recourse. Now, I think it's certainly good news for him that the Supreme Court ordered the Trump administration to try to get him back, but whether he gets back, it's unclear.
Yeah, Jeff Toobin, thanks very much. Appreciate it. Now, the markets and fresh evidence that what the president has unleashed on 401ks and the global economy with his tariff policy has not been